Hello everyone. This is the 16th part of the story Game of Thrones, the Prideful one. Chapter 76. 3 weeks passed since the grill day. Oberyn had yet to arrive, but I wasn't going to wait for him any longer, and I didn't. I was already outside Braavos at my war camp close, that was conveniently a few miles away from them, which apparently triggered the Braavosi Sea Lord because I was awakened by one of my Raven scouts who tells me that our camp will be under attack soon. Which made me glad I had decided to left Daenerys behind on Pentos for this one with 5,000 soldiers, while I fought the Braavosi right now. With a grunt, I jumped out of the bed and looked outside down the hill, confirming that a large group of soldiers was indeed approaching. Seeing they were at much 1 hour away, I quickly dressed as grabbed my weapons. "Get ready! Braavos is coming!" I shouted loud and clear for all my men to hear. The Unsullied were already ready and alert, with the Dothraki being the second part of my army to follow suit. "They have a dialogue flag." One of my men shouted, so they wanted to talk. "Well, let's." Braavos wasn't like any other place in this world. They were kind of democratic with the power structure. By kinda I mean the position of Sea Lord is not hereditary, and is given in a pseudo-electoral way. That works. Kind of fishy. One of Braavos' citizens is chosen to be Sea Lord by the city's magisters and bankers through a convoluted and arcane process, meaning the populace has no vote whatsoever, and only wins the most malleable man. The choosing process apparently is intense by how the rumors go, but once chosen, the new Sea Lord serves for life. Braavos' current Sea Lord was Ferrago Andrian. All I know about him is that he is a member of House Andrian, a noble house, and that he is who currently serves as the current Sea Lord of Braavos. But a Sea Lord was nothing without his sword. Each Sea Lord selects their first sword, who serves as their champion, captain of the guard, and ambassador sometimes. They were known for their immense prowess in battle and unique fighting style. Caro Valentin was the current first sword of Braavos, and probably the man I would have to kill soon enough. "Welcome, Lord Mormont," the Sea Lord greeted with a disapproving look on his face. "Is king, please be sure to remember that for however long you have," I said with a playful tone, letting him know he meant nothing to me. See, at first, I wasn't so sure about conquering Braavos. They seemed like an alright place, so the idea of opening a peaceful dialogue with them occurred to me once or twice, but the moment they allowed someone to commission a ton of fucking wildfire, well, let's just say I don't have any more doubts. Braavos and the Iron Bank are one. The fucking bankers are an important part of their electoral process, which means they knew of this crazy project and still allowed it. Fuck them with capital F. "Do you really think this will end well for you?" the Sea Lord inquired with an apathetic tone. How prideful this bastard could be. With a smile I thought two could play this game, so I leaned back, putting my hands behind my head and my feet up the table. "Yeah, have you seen my record? History would prove I'm right." "How dare you disrespect the Sea Lord this way?" the first sword of Braavos growled, clearly infuriated. "What is a lord to a king?" I chuckled playfully. "As much as I like this nonsense, I came here to discuss the terms of your surrender," the Sea Lord said with a judgmental look on his face. "Sure," I smiled, with a joyful expression forming up my face. The two of them seemed happy for a moment, and I knew it was my moment to strike. "So, you will lay down your weapons, give me all your money, and kill yourself? Sounds fair?" Both the first sword and the Sea Lord were astonished of my response. They surely didn't see that one coming. "You are making a grave mistake, kid," the Sea Lord said with a hostile tone, trying to kill me with glares. "No," I said with a dark tone, "you are the one that made a mistake, when you let Ilrio buy 1 ton of wildfire, just to kill me. Your greatest sin was making an enemy out of me, so do yourself a favor and kill yourself, because as long as your body is not underground rotting, I won't stop, I won't slow down. One way or another, you will die, and it will be because of me." "How dare you?" The first sword pulled his weapon him, which in turn made Grey Worm, who was one of my selected bodyguards, jump in front of me, spear ready to pierce any threats, followed by Ser Barristan Selmy. "Allow me to kill this man, my king," Grey Worm requested, glaring at the first sword. "You think Braavos will fall to you?" The Sea Lord chuckled, but I could see his bitter tone miles away. No Braavosi would kneel to a slaver. "Oh, wow, you need to upgrade your spy network," I chuckled. "We are no slaves. We serve the Call of the West, the Breaker of Chains, the Father of Dragons, the King of the known world, because he is worthy of being followed. We are the ones that aren't worthy of his guidance," Grey Worm said, and I could feel he meant every single word. Insolent fool! The first sword growled, taking a step forward. Boy, I can cut you 20 times before you reach my king, so do your job and think wisely, or this might be the last decision you ever made, Sir Barristan said, sword ready to slice the first sword. You will die, and every Bravosi that dies will be because of you, I said, standing up. We are leaving, these two idiots are not worth my time. Grey Worm and Sir Barristan nodded, as they followed me out of that place, leaving behind the soon-to-be dead idiots. I went back to my camp satisfied how the peace reunion had gone. Surrender, ha. They should have thought of that when they paid for a nuke. You do not sponsor a nuclear deterrent and later say, we are doing it for peace. How do you want to proceed with this, my king? Sir Barristan inquired. Well, I have just the idea for this, I smiled as I started to explain my round table, consisting of Sir Barristan Selmy, my most trusted blood rider Angie, and Grey Worm, who I would rename Lancelot. Can't stand calling him Grey Worm, it feels like I'm insulting him. Oberyn Martell point of view. I had finally arrived in Pentos, after a bit of delay with the storms and stuff. I was finally here, though the city wasn't like I remembered. The city had banners all over the place that seemed to be the mix of House Targaryen and House Mormont together. Which means the young bear moves fast, and not only that, but I was immediately stooped by the Iron Navy, who then proceeded to interrogate me so much I was quite sure they knew me more than my beautiful Illyria now. Can I speak with the Queen now? I inquired. Not that I don't like your company, I would love to take you out, but I have more pressing matters. You are as lively as rumors said, a commanding voice said behind me, which was more than easy to tell it was the Queen, mostly because the men inside the room shut their mouths as soon as she entered. I am, thank you very much for noticing, I smiled. And I hope you have in your best interest to keep that, Daenerys smiled, and while subtle her threat was clear, take a wrong step and you won't be lively anymore, or alive for the matter. It is, I like being alive, I nodded, with a smile. What is your purpose here? Daenerys inquired, taking a seat. To pledge myself to you and the king. Dorne is yours to command. I winked at her. If you let help us take our revenge on the Lannisters. The Lannisters are our enemies too, Daenerys nodded, then kneel, and pledge your blade to us. I did as I was told, as I smiled at her playfully. This is a sight I don't mind repeating. I will assume that was an ill-judged attempt of you trying to be funny. Daenerys narrowed her beautiful purple eyes at me. I'm your queen now, and I'm married, to your king. Oh dear, I would never sleep with the queen alone, but I wouldn't mind sleeping with both the queen and the king. I chuckled. You are going to have to forgive me, my queen. Dorne is the land of passion. We don't have boundaries. We fuck, we drink, and we indulge ourselves in the carnal desires of the flesh, be it man or woman. So those rumors were true too, Daenerys said, bored. You are also a horny idiot. I must apologize, I smiled. It's the way I am. Next time you insinuate something like that, I will have you join the Unsullied, Daenerys said with a cold tone. I must apologize in advance, it's just the way I am. Won't happen again, I nodded, quite surprised the little dragoness had such sharp claws and teeth under her pretty exterior. I better avoid the flirting if I want to keep my best friend attached to me. Chapter 77. No wall surrounds my war camp, and yet, the Sea Lord was hesitant to attack me. He knew I was while young, dangerous, unpredictable. Or perhaps I was predictable. After all I do is win, but forgetting for a moment about feeding my own ego, I knew he didn't have the power to fight me up front, but that didn't mean he would resort to other methods. My king, Sir Barristan said, as he entered my room, his face letting me know he had something important to share. Yes? I inquired. There is a messenger from Bravos here, Sir Barristan answered, and this information confused me a bit. Didn't I told the Sea Lord a day ago I would kill him? Why in the seven hells would he send someone to talk to me? Taking a deep breath, I get off my tent, seeing a massive black horse rearing close to me, dust curling around its hooves. The horse was probably one of the most beautiful horses I've ever seen, and atop of that majestic horse, a piece of shit. A Bravusi messenger with a terribly scarred face and a pair of gold teeth. Of course, he didn't come alone, but considering that all he brought to a camp with 90,000 soldiers was nothing but 15 men, it was technically as if he came alone. Seriously, what can 15 men do with these numbers? The messenger took a step forwards, and I could already taste the smugness he emanated. I bring word from the great Sea Lord of Bravos. We can debate on the great part, I chuckled. if he was so great, why counsel he comprehend my clear hostility towards him? Many of my Dothraki approach the man with smirks on their faces, they touch the messenger hair and smell around him, and soon they all start to laugh. My call, this man smells like a woman. I started to laugh with my men. Well, I suppose it was to be expected. A man that doesn't ride into battle is no man, my blood rider said with a smile. The messenger was by this point incredibly infuriated, hands griping his pants, Westerosi arrogance. It will be the death of you all. If it were not for the diplomacy of the great Sea Lord, I would rip the breath from your lungs, with my bare hands. I chuckled as I walked towards him, leaning close to him, handing him a knife. Oh my, threaten me with a good time, go ahead, do it, none of my men will move, but be sure to kill on your first shot, because if you don't, you will regret it. My king! Ser Barristan protested but was silenced with a simple glare. You! The messenger froze with shock as stared at me with wide eyes. Dropping the knife, I gave him to the ground. So does anyone wants to try? I chuckled. You bastard. One of the Braavosi guards couldn't take it anymore and dashed with his blade towards me. I turned to him, a volunteer. With that I dashed forward, kicking him on the neck with enough strength to shattering his neck, killing him in one shot. I will fight you, another guard said. He was old but looked experienced. If I win, will your troops go back? They will, I smiled, eyeing the still fighting messenger who was just silent, like a mute. The man grabbed a big sword and started to swing at me, quite slow. It was as if dodging someone trying to punch me underwater. With me not being underwater, after a while, this sad attempt started to get boring. For God's sake, stop, this is stupid even by your Braavosi standards, and as we've seen this week, that threshold is vast. Is this just a game to you? The old soldier growled, angry, holding his massive sword tight. I smiled. A game? Hardly. If this were a game, I would be having fun, or killing Joffrey. Now that sounds like a good time. Ah! The old soldier rushed at me, giving his last battle cry, that lasted for a few seconds before his decapitated head landed with a heavy thud on the floor. Now, that was depressing, I chuckled, eyeing the messenger. The messenger composed himself a bit, and said with the utmost confidence, if you value your lives over your complete annihilation, you must turn back now, while our great lord is forgiving. I sighed, wondering where did he get all that bravado. He just saw me effortlessly kill 2 of his guards. Before continue to shit through your mouth, Braavosi, know that I'm in a really bad mood today, so even a lord's messenger, you will be held accountable for the words coming out of your mouth, is that clear? Leave, and submit to the Sea Lord, and all will be forgiven, the messenger said, ignoring my threat. Just how stupid can someone be? Submission, he wanted me to submit. How fucking dare he? If you don't submit, he will kill you and everyone you love. Weaponizing my family, I see. And who's going to swing the sword? I inquired, angry. Your Sea Lord? That was laughable. You? Not in a million years. As I talk, I continue to move towards the man, and his guards sword out. This? You can't kill the messenger. The messenger said, ordering his men to attack, but those were soon intercepted by my own guard, who were dealing with them quite easily. I told you, I whispered close to his ear, next time, learn to listen. With that I pushed my blade through his heart, as I stared deep into his eyes, seeing his life slowly drain out of him. Panic, fear, anger, were just a few of the emotions I was able to read on his face before the sweet release of death came for him. Kill everyone but one, I ordered my men. After all, I wanted someone to deliver the message that peace was never an option. They threw that to the trash when they helped my enemies. Oberyn Martell point of view. The beautiful, but really scary queen, had ordered me and my army to go and help Ronard. Apparently, he is fighting with Braavos. I didn't bring many men, but she said that I had to prove my loyalty by being there for my king, the things I do for revenge, the things I do for love. I finally had the chance to avenge Elia, my own sweet little son that was taken from us, by those wretched lions, and if the price to get the revenge Dorne has been waiting was to kneel for a new king, we would do it. I didn't care who sat on the throne, all I knew was that I didn't want it. Too much work, my only desire was to kill Tywin and his men. Let's go, men, we are going dancing to Braavos, I ordered, not really sure if any of my men understood my clever wordplay about Braavos water dancing. Dario Nahari's point of view. The young bear had changed his schedule completely, and here we were with a contract of defending a city he might not even attack anytime soon. But I suppose getting paid for doing nothing was also acceptable, but one thing was absolutely true: I still had no idea how we would win, when all we had was 500 soldiers. I'm not really sure what the masters of Yunkai expect. Because unless we each killed 200 of his army without dying, this was a suicide. Tywin Lannister point of view. Dorne had pledged their loyalty to the young Baron Essos, that alongside the North gave the Bear around 80,000 soldiers. That alone was very troubling, but the trust was just the beginning. The boy had also managed in Essos to acquire an army of 100,000 soldiers, which would bring his army to 180,000 soldiers. And while the young Bear continued to grow and grow, our resources, our men, and everything we needed for this war was benign depleted. Slowly but surely, every day we were weaker, and because of that we would pay. If only we could get the Tyrells to join us, we would have a better chance at winning this. Renly needs to die. With Renly dead, we would be able to marry Margaery to Joffrey, and in the process we would even the numbers out, because so far, the boy was ahead of us. Then again, he doesn't have to deal with the idiocy of my children, and the mad rat for a grandchild I had, Joffrey. Chapter 78. The time had come. The time for war. I would be leading the cavalry, with my entire Khalasar moving as one unit, while Lancelot aka Grey Worm attacked the gates of the city. Our forces were numerously superior to theirs, but they could still prove to be worthy opponents. Braavos had hired all the Sellsword companies with the exception of two, the Golden Company and the Storm Crows. But even with those two out of the picture, they still had managed to amass 40,000 outside soldiers, which put them in a total of 60,000 soldiers on their side. But while their army could pose a problem, I knew I could handle things as they came. With my horses, ravens, snakes, bears and other animals, my army was nearly unstoppable. But I wasn't going to let this thought of near invincibility cloud my judgment. Only fools think of victory before it. I will lead the first attack with my Khalasar, I informed my war council. And we will lead the navy attack, right? My Ironborn inquired, looking at the map. Yes, I nodded, turning to the Unsullied. The Unsullied alongside Ser Barristan will push the main gate, while I keep their undivided attention on me. It shall be done, Lancelot nodded. I will do my best, Ser Barristan bowed. That was just part A of my plan. With the help of my ravens I would bomb the city with medieval Molotovs, setting Braavos and unfortunately its people on fire. What I wanted to accomplish with this was to divert their attention with chaos outside and within the city. This would break whatever strategy they had, or at the very least weaken them. But that's just the beginning of my Air Force attack, because Rhoda would be leading the Air Assault Forces B, where 500 ravens would be dropping poison bombs within the enemy ranks, disrupting their formations and killing some of their ranks. At first I was reluctant to send my ravens with poison to attack. History has proved they tend to kill themselves with that. But Rhoda showed me they had evolved to the point where they didn't, so I approved of his idea. With this my victory was partly assured. Now it was time to execute my plan. To war! I shouted, rallying my men. To war! At the battle began, with my ravens being the first ones to attack. My loyal birds fly really high, far from the reach from the enemy's arrow range, and begin releasing small metal objects that release a poisonous mist. The Braavosi soldiers soon begin to choke and gag. And not having the antidote, I had their throat began to swell, and one by one they fell into the ground with heavy thuds. Wait for it, I had my troops on standby, waiting for my ravens to complete their part. Soon after the next airstrike followed, with the other squad of ravens dropping Molotovs, then in total equal barrels of flammable liquid Braavos setting the city in flames from the air. I let this continue for a few minutes, seeing how my feathery friends destroyed their ranks one by one, but them alone would not win this. It was time. I gallop with my horse with thousands of Dothraki soldiers following me as I yell charge. My troops rush forward with me with loud war cries. I'm in front of the charge, like a call should be, and soon enough, my army crashes into the enemy. I start hacking at the Braavosi soldiers, killing 8 with my first swing without getting off my horse. I swing again, slashing another throat, leaving a trail of death behind me as I move forward. Jumping off my horse, mostly because fighting in one is uncomfortable, I rolled in the ground grabbing a warhammer. Deciding to try dual-wielding this weapon with my sword, I swung the warhammer, shattering someone's skull with ease. As I continued with my assault, I duck under a spear that was going for my head in an attempt to kill. With a smile, I dropped the warhammer for a second as I grabbed the spear from the still-alive enemy, disarming him with a swift kick, and then jabbed his own weapon through his neck. Noticing I was about to be surrounded, I smiled as I swung my blade, killing 5 guys with a single sweep, taking a deep breath. I keep on dancing through the battlefield, turning and tearing through the Bravosi ranks. Seeing that around 20 more soldiers were coming my way, I leaped into the air as one spearman tried to stab me. In the air, I grabbed the soldier's neck and with a strong twist broke his neck, doing a 180-degree turn. Wow, I will call that move the Hooderniter, because damn, I laughed. With a dark smile, I kept on fighting, slaughtering like the pigs they were while laughing and roaring as blood splattered my armor with each swing. At one point I was head to toe covered in their blood. And after a few hours of them seeing me slaughter them like pigs with no success in harming me, the Bravosi soldiers started to flee in sheer terror from me and my soldiers, but mostly me. My Dothraki warriors of course wouldn't let this happen, so they chased them down, wiping everyone that tries to escape my herd. To the city! I shouted, mounting my horse, and immediately galloping to Bravos. Ferrago Andrion point of view. The city was burning, our army was being slaughtered. If this continued we would lose by the end of the day. I was so sure we could hold him down, for years if necessary, but how was I supposed to know he had trained his ravens to drop poison and fire? The only option I had was to challenge him to a duel, his champion against mine, the winner takes all. Send a raven to the young bear, this was my last bet, and the last path to victory we still had. My first sword was sure to win for me this war, for there wasn't any better swordsman than him. Ronald Mormont point of view. A few hours after the slaughter outside the city walls, a raven arrived from the Sea Lord. He wanted to avoid any further Bravosi blood to be spilled and requested we solve this with a duel, his champion against mine. The duel had but one rule: I couldn't fight. This was a high-risk, high-reward situation. If I won, Bravos would be mine faster, and I would lose less, but if my champion lost, I would have to stop invading them. Allow me to fight for you, Ser Barristan said, kneeling. I have fought more duels than any man alive, and I'm still here. Let me win this battle for you. The old knight was right in one thing: he was my best option. My Dothraki weren't good at fighting armored knights, and I wasn't sure Lancelot could win against the first sword. Bring me honor and glory, I nodded, and I could see as if I had given the man the crown or something. His spirit was fueled with a strong drive to win now. I will, my king, Ser Barristan said, with his tone sounding as if he was stating a fact, the fact that his victory was assured. Brienne of the Kingsguard point of view. I was finally serving the man I loved. I knew I would never be his queen, but this was more than enough. To be his blade was more than enough. Today we were preparing for battle, to battle with Stannis' forces the next dawn, and I was guarding him, but a cold and chilling air invaded my very core, fear turning me blind for a second. Immediately I turned around to see a shadow approaching Renly. No! I shouted, rushing to save my king, but it was too late. For all I managed to accomplish was seeing my king being slain by the animated shadow that looked like Stannis. I had failed to protect the man I loved. I failed my duty, but I would avenge him. Chapter 79. As I had agreed on paper, I had chosen a champion, and with the champion I met in the arena with the Sea Lord of Bravos, ensuring it was both a neutral ground for me and for him. My champion was Ser Barristan, who was more than ready to duel the first sword of Bravos, master of the infamous water-dancing sword style. The crowds in the arena were roaring in anticipation, wanting for the duel to start, and as for me, I was anxious, wondering why the hell I accepted this in the first place. I had already won partially, but it was too late now, so I decided to trust the old knight. And besides, it has been ages since I have seen a proper sword fight, where I'm not involved. Taking a deep breath, I stand up and shouted, "Start!" Seconds after, the two blades clashed and it was like a lightning storm coming together in one place. Quite impressive being on the other end, seeing a battle unfold with some good wine and food. While many are blinded and deafened by the clashing of metal on metal, I find myself enjoying the thrill of this show, which made me worry a bit. Did I enjoy the possibility of losing, or that someone else was fighting for me? Or perhaps I just liked the fight with no secret motive. The crowd was apparently like me, enjoying the show because they were going wild, some cheering for Barristan and some for the first sword of Bravos. I looked over at the first sword and saw him struggling but standing his ground against the seasoned knight. In a brief moment he noticed I was looking and smiled at me with a toothy smile. The fuck? I muttered, looking over Barristan. Kill him now. I had a feeling they were planning something, but what? At my command, Barristan charged at the first sword of Bravos, with blinding speed, and while he wasn't nearly as fast as me, it surprised me time. With a singular move his blade flashes in the shock the first sword of Bravos barely moves out of the way, avoiding lethal damage, but not crippling damage. I knew because of how long the Bravosi took to reach that Barristan was going to be faster, too fast for him to avoid completely. Which is why the first sword of Bravos ended up with Barristan's blade buried on his right shoulder, which made him drop his own sword. Pain and shock froze him for a brief second, and that brief second was all the knight needed to win. In a swift motion he took his blood-covered blade out of the Bravosi shoulder, proceeding to sever his head immediately after. The duel was complete. I had won. Barristan turned around, and kneeled as he said, "This victory is in honor of my king, long shall he reign." I won. I turned with a huge smirk on my face to see the Sea Lord of Bravos smiling. "For now," the Sea Lord cackled. "Okay, please enlighten me?" I sighed, wondering what they did to think they still had a chance. "Any moment now the poison in your wine will take effect," the Sea Lord smiled, looking at my wine. "You won the battle, not the war, young bear." "And my men?" I inquired. I had brought 100 guards with me, keeping my army outside, and while I doubted he managed to poison them, I had to ask. People tend to spill everything when sure of their victory, though I wonder how he will react when he finds out I'm immune to poisoning. "Just you," the Sea Lord smiled. "I said I wanted to end this bloodshed, and for that to happen only you have to die." "Ha ha ha. God fucking damn it," I sighed. "And in your plan, how did you plan to stop me if I decided to kill you before the poison started to work?" The Sea Lord looked at me, and after a second of nothing, probably realizing he didn't plan that far ahead, he unsheathed his blade. "I'm more than enough to kill you." "Ha ha ha," I laughed, which apparently made the Sea Lord really angry. "Oh dear, you were serious, then please, allow me to laugh even harder." "Ha ha ha ha. How dare," the Sea Lord was about to probably say something along the lines of, "I am the best blah blah," but I had enough shit for one day, so I shut him up by putting my hand on his mouth. "And, I am done, Sea Lord. While there's absolutely nothing I'd rather do than stand here and listen to you bluster at me until the heat death of the universe, I literally have a million better things to do, like killing Joffrey." So with a huge smile, I threw him like a bag of trash into the arena. Loud gasps of shock could be heard around, as I landed beside him. "How dare you!" the Sea Lord cried out in pain. The following act contains violence, coarse language, and adult situations not suitable for minors. Viewer discretion is advised. I chuckled as I grabbed the crying Sea Lord by his shirt, snapping his neck like a stick before he could even process what was about to happen. Time to rip off Perfect Cell even more, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, and those idiots that still think you can best me. I am Ronard. And you may recognize me as the young bear, or as the Call of the West, or perhaps as the mighty conqueror. But that's not what I'm here to talk to about today. Today, I'm making an announcement. At this point I had everyone's attention in the arena, all the nobles of Bravos staring at me. "I will take this city, that much is a fact. It can be by blood or not. I'll let the people of Bravos decide. I'm not that bad, but you will only have till tomorrow at noon to decide." Murmurs could be heard among the crowd, fear spreading among them like a pandemic. Just what I was looking for. Fear breeds submission. That should give everyone plenty of time to prepare and get ready to fight me. Or for those that know that it is impossible to beat me but are too stubborn to surrender, time to connect with loved ones, get your affairs in order, or maybe just kill someone. Get a purge going. Live a little. Because in 18 hours, I chuckled as I pointed to the dead Sea Lord, "So, keep that in mind and the shit in your parts, and I'll see you all tomorrow at noon. Also, feel free to pray to your God." But spoilers. I won't be listening. With that I walked out of the arena with my men following me close behind, leaving a mute audience of nobles that were so shocked by my display they couldn't even muster words. "That speech was certainly terrifying," Ser Barristan said. "I learned that from a friend, his name is Sel," I chuckled. "Well, he is really good at making things both oddly appealing to the audience and terrifying," Ser Barristan said. "Or sometimes is more about the mind games than the soldiers," I chuckled. "That is a wise statement, my king," Ser Barristan nodded. Gordon Ramsay Ravenicus point of view. I was the royal chef for the dragon siblings, and all I did was fucking tasty, corntastic. I was the proud owner of 3 Cornchulin stars. Can I eat it now? Neltharion said, trying to take a bit out of the pig I was roasting. Caw! Can't you see it's raw, you stupid baboon? I shouted angrily, slapping the young dragon prince away. I will let you know when it's ready to go. Ha ha ha, Regal laughed. Serves you right, moron, Crow chuckled. The fuck you called moron? Neltharion growled, smoke coming out of his mouth. I can add dragons to the menu. So stop your idiotic activities in my kitchen. I caught at them. Sorry. The 3 young dragons said in one voice. Chapter 80. Bravos took my threat seriously because the next day before noon they were openly surrendering. Bravos was finally mine, but there were a few rats inside the city that I had to eradicate before moving forward, the Iron Bank being one of them. They were the main poison inside the city, my city, and I was the antidote. The nobles have completely surrendered, my king, Ser Barristan said as he knelt before me. With a smile, I looked at him and said, perfect, send the Unsullied to collect all the nobles of the city, including the bankers. To make sure I wouldn't suffer a coup in the future, I had to first gather all the rats in one place and then purge the untrustworthy ones, leaving only those that I could trust because they were loyal, or they feared me. Either one worked. Ser Barristan stood up from the floor and said, as you wish, my king. With that the old knight departed to carry out my orders, leaving me in my office alone. Now that the city was mine, I had no tangible real reason to stay here. I had my army, and no real opposition on this side of the sea, so I had to start planning my invasion of Westeros. Daenerys would remain on this side of the sea to rule over the cities we had conquered as their queen while I fought the lions in the west. There were many other reasons as to why I wanted to leave her on Essos. For one, she would be safe and sound, and so would the babies. A man is surprised, an unfamiliar voice said in the shadows. Following the sound, I found a man who could only be described as a hobo, but had a dangerous air to it. A faceless man, here for another chat or? I inquired, taking a deep breath, wondering what did they want this time. The assassin looked at me, his eyes devoid of any emotion and personality, without fear, without anger, nothing but an empty sheet of everything that makes us human. A man wants nothing, a man can't kill you, but a man can hurt you. Immediately my mind went to my children, my wife. If they couldn't kill me, they sure could try and hurt me, but although the idea of my family being hurt terrified me, I had planned ahead against this scenario for a long time. Daenerys had hundreds of animals always keeping an eye on her and the babies, animals that couldn't be fooled by a fake face. My bears alone could smell strange people from miles away. With a hard look on my face, I turned my gaze to him as I said, what's to keep me from destroying your region? Vala Dohaeris, Vala Morgulus, the faceless men smiled, all men must serve, and all men must die. We are not afraid of death, we serve it. That much was true, they served death, and were like roaches hard to kill, because you don't know who belongs to the order unless you see them in person. I'll be honest, I'm confused as to why are you here. A man wanted to strike a deal, the faceless man informed me. Go on, I sighed, maybe it would be beneficial for me. The assassin began to explain how the only thing his guild wanted to do in exchange of never targeting or attacking my family by any means was for me to allow his guild bury me when I died. Weird request, but I was still a bit skeptic, but when I asked him if they wanted to use my face or something, he said no. That what they wanted was to give me to the god of death personally. So seeing that all they were really asking was to be a free burial service for my old body in the future, I nodded, deal. A man is pleased. With that the weird assassin left, leaving me with more questions than answer, but at least I had one less thorn on my ass to worry about fully at the very least. Well, that was odd, I sighed. Oberyn Martell point of view. When I arrived at Bravos, I was more than surprised to see the city was completely taken over by the young bear. He had managed to do it in less than a week. That is surprising and terrifying. Just how good was this brat in war? To lead the Dothraki he had to be strong, and to win wars he had to be smart, a really fearsome combination. State you business, I was abruptly stopped by an unsullied warrior, pointing his spear at me. My name is Oberyn Martell, I was sent here by the queen, I chuckled, taking a step back. I'll let the king now, don't move. Oh, the unsullied, always straight to business, no fun, but how nostalgic. It reminds me of the old days, when I was traveling around Essos training among them. Rude, at least give me your name, I smiled. Lancelot, Lancelot, well that was a weird name for an Unsullied. If I remembered correctly their masters forced them to change names every day, and their names would usually be something insulting and demeaning. Don't worry, I'll wait here. I waved him off. Ronald Mormont point of view. Oberyn has arrived, a tad late if you ask, but I suppose is the intention what really matters. With his house I had the support of 2 out of the 6 great houses in Westeros. The Greyjoys were a thing of the past, so I can't count them. Now all I had to do was get some ships and move my army to the west, and start planning my strategy. From the top of my head I had many ideas, a lot of them involving rats, for King's Landing had thousands of them, but I would have to wait. My king, Oberyn bowed. Let's get to the point, shall we? I knew what he wanted and he knew what I wanted, so why pretend? I know the only reason your house is joining us is to destroy the Lannister, which is totally fine. I hate those lions for the most part too, but what comes after that? After the destruction of you enemies, what comes next? I didn't want allies that would turn their backs at me once their own personal vendetta was complete. I wanted to know to what extent they would stay. Oberyn looked at me and after a second of humming started to laugh. A straight-to-business man, I can respect that. Don't worry, you will have Dorne's loyalty as long as you let us have our retribution. By the end of that his tone of voice was dark and cold, the complete opposite to his normal cheerful demeanor, as if a switch inside of him had been turned off. Then we won't have a problem, I nodded. If all they wanted in exchange of their loyalty was Tywin, the Mountain and the other idiot that fucked their family, they could have them. They are yours to do as you please, but leave Joffrey to me. Then, I will do my best to serve you, my king, Oberyn smiled. This marks the end of part 16 of the story Game of Thrones, The Prideful One. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.